This is a Rough Tiger production.
And you, and you, and you, and you were there. Some of it wasn't very nice, but most of it was beautiful.
And finally, we're back.
We are back between Bryan's travails and my travels. Uh, we are we are back. Thanks for your patience. Things happen that things happen. So, but thank you very much. We are back with two repeat episodes. A couple of our favorites right in a row there. So that was
Mhm.
good to hear again. For those of you who may be introducing new folks, I think we did the Flory Fisher two-parter. So we had some good memories of heroin and marijuana and stuffed chicken necks and all kinds of stuff. How are you,
Mhm.
Bryan?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, it's the blast furnace of summer in Texas, but all is well. So good to be back. And thanks for listening, folks. We appreciate that. Please check us out on all the platforms because we're on all of them. If you get a chance, if you can go on there and shoot us 5 stars and shoot us a review, just type in a random character string. It doesn't really matter what you say, but it helps us climb the charts. We'd appreciate that on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of them. You can go to dreamidiots.com to see merch and the whole back catalog of stuff. And then we're also on Facebook and Instagram at Dream Idiots. And if you want to drop us a line, give us a curse word, give us a story idea, that's always good too. You can write to us at dreamidiotspodcast@gmail.com.
Yes, that is awesome. And thanks for everybody who's been doing that and getting in touch with us. We do appreciate that. Bryan, I have one small announcement before we get started.
Go.
That's okay with you.
Yep.
Bryan, this is the first time I'm announcing this, so I'm sorry if it's a shock to you, but I am not running for president.
Damn.
Yeah, just so you know. So I'm fully throwing my support behind the vice president. So
Yeah, absolutely.
anyway, on that note, let's get started with episode 120. I get to go first. Bryan, I'm going to start by talking about Steely Dan, the band, not the other thing.
Okay.
The Steely Dan album Asia, released on September 23rd, 1977, has a song titled Peg on it. Peg is about a woman, not the other thing. It's the first song on side two and was the first of 3 singles released from that album. It was released in November of that year. Are you familiar with the song Peg? You've probably heard it at some point if you've heard the album Asia. I don't know if you're a big Steely Dan fan.
There's so many bands from that era. I mean, where they have a song or two or three or four where if suddenly I heard them, I'm sure I would know some or maybe even all the lyrics, but I couldn't tell you the name of the song or the artist. So Steely Dan, Steve Miller Band,
Well,
Doobie
what
Brothers,
one thing doing this story has done is it made me get in touch with my old RA from my first year at Trinity because he introduced me to Steely Dan. He loaned me my first Steely Dan CD.
Okay.
So I got in touch with him and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know that you probably don't remember me, but da 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 da." Thanks for. He wrote me back. He's doing important stuff now. Um, this album, Asia, hit number 3 on the Billboard charts and number 5 in the UK, making it the best-selling release in Steely Dan's discography. Writing for All Music Guide, Stephen Thomas Erlewine, a great music writer, describes the album as, quote, a shining example of jazz rock at its finest, and notes that, quote, even the simplest song, the sunny pop of Peg, has layers of jazzy vocal harmonies. Indeed, it does. Fans have long speculated as to the identity of Peg. Was she a friend of the band, perhaps a former lover of Walter Becker or Donald Fagen? Like most Steely Dan songs, it's fucking great. Here's the first 2 verses and the chorus that set up the mystery of Peg's identity. I'm not going to sing it. I've seen your
Oh,
picture.
come on.
I've seen your picture, your name and lights above it. This is your big debut. It's like a dream come true. So won't you smile for the camera? I know they're going to love it. Peg. I like your pin shot. I keep it with your letter, done up in blueprint blue. It sure looks good on you. And when you smile for the camera, I know they'll love it better. And then the chorus, Peg, it will come back to you. Peg, it will come back to you. Then the shutter falls, you see it all in 3D. It's your favorite foreign movie. Now, it's really hard not to sing that in Al Bundy's voice from Married with Children. Peg! One longtime candidate for Peg's identity is Millicent Lillian, quote, Peg Entwhistle. I'm just going to call her Peg Entwhistle because Millicent Lillian, if you keep saying that over and over again, it gets really difficult.
Yeah.
She was a depression. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, never mind.
It's a rough one. A Depression era actress. She was born in Wales on February 5th, 1908, and came to the United States with her father, an actor, and her two younger half brothers. There is speculation as to whether or not Peg's mother, A, abandoned her husband and infant, or B, was in fact abandoned by her husband. The date of the move is also up for debate. Generally thought to have moved to the States in 1916 with settlement in New York City, there's strong evidence that the Entwhistles lived in Ohio beginning in 1913. Whatever the case there, the second Mrs. Entwhistle, Peg's stepmother, died in 1921, and Papa Robert Entwhistle was dead by 1922, having been killed in a hit-and-run accident at 72nd and Park Avenue. Gotta love New York City. So Peg Entwhistle and her two younger half-brothers lived with an uncle in New York while she started her acting career, spending a lot of time up in Boston as a member of a repertory theater there. She played the role of Hedvig in Henrik Ibsen's The Wild Duck, to no small acclaim in 1925. One of her fans being a contemporary actress exactly her age, someone named Betty Davis. Followed by her fully credited role in a play called The Man from Toronto in 1926. So you know if she's doing Wild Duck, if she's doing Henrik Ibsen, you know she's a great comedic actress, because that Ibsen is a laugh riot. Over the next few years, Peg had several runs in 10 different Broadway productions. Some of them were relatively long-lived, like 1927's Tommy, not that Tommy, which ran for 232 performances. Others, like The Uninvited Guest, lasted only 7 performances. Even in the less popular plays, critics had very good things to say about Peg Entwhistle's acting abilities. Then the Great Depression hit. Like many Americans, Peg headed west in hope of better fortunes. The lure of the Hollywoodland sign, standing on the hill since 1923, prompted young hopefuls to hop on trains and head out for Southern California. She appeared in a play in 1932 in Los Angeles with Billy Burke, who would go on to play the Good Witch in Wizard of Oz, and somebody by the name of Humphrey Bogart, where she again received critical praise. Next stop was the RKO film 13 Women. It was an ensemble film, obviously, headlined by Myrna Loy and Irene Dunn. Peg had a supporting role which amounted to about 16 minutes of screen time, 12 of which ended up on the editing room floor. Initial screenings were not well received. Prior to the 1932 release in October of that year, Peg Entwhistle took a trip up to the Hollywoodland sign above the city. On September 16th, she had told her uncle she was living with that she was going out to visit friends. Instead, she hiked to the base of the sign, climbed to the top of the H, and leapt off into the void. A woman hiking the hill on September 18th found just below the sign one of Peg's shoes, her jacket, and her purse containing a suicide note. A little further down, she found Peg's body. Entwhistle's story was most clearly told in a song by Dory Previn, a songwriter of no small regard. Dory Previn was a motion picture theme lyricist from the 60s to the early 70s. She earned 3 Academy Award nominations during this span. She also worked in musical theater, wrote her memoirs, and eventually recorded a series of albums in the 1970s in the singer-songwriter vein. Her life, though filled with artistic triumphs, had dark personal stretches. 2 stays in psychiatric hospitals, a lifelong traumatic and violent relationship with her father, a man who had been tormented by his World War I service where he was gassed in the field, and then her marriage to composer Andre Previn, which fell apart thanks to his affair with an actress named Mia Farrow. She wrote a song called Beware of Young Girls to document that chapter in her life. In Left Hand Lost, she recounts the efforts of nuns to force her to use her right hand in her schoolwork and deny her left-handedness. All of these tragedies and more came pouring out in her brilliant songs. One album, titled Mary C. Brown and the Hollywood Sign, was filled with stories about Hollywood hangers-ons, desperate people searching for their moment in the business. The title song is the song most likely inspired by Peg Entwhistle. The title song has the following lyrics. You know the Hollywood sign that stands in the Hollywood Hills. I don't think the Christ of the Andes has ever blessed so many ills. The Hollywood sign seems to smile like it's constantly saying cheese. I doubt if the Statue of Liberty ever welcomed more refugees. Give me your poor, your tired, your pimps, your car hops, your cowboys, your midgets, your chimps. Give me your freaks, your whores, your harlots, your flunkies, your junkies. Give me your starlets. Mary Cecilia Brown rode to town on a Malibu bus. She climbed to the top of the Hollywood sign, and with the smallest possible fuss, she jumped off the letter H because she did not become a star. She died in less than a minute and a half. She looked a bit like Hedy Lamarr. A few others have used Peg Entwhistle as subject matter for their songs, but I'll leave that to you to find out for yourselves. As to whether or not Entwhistle is the Peg of Steely Dan's song, Donald Fagen of Steely Dan finally put it all to rest in a 2020 interview. The titular Peg is based on a real person, a friend who was involved in a photo shoot in Los Angeles, but not Peg Entwhistle. Fagen explained that in writing the song, he simply needed a short name. We just wanted a dotted half note for that spot, and Peg was short enough to fit the music. And that is the story of Peg and Peg Entwhistle and the Hollywood sign.
Oh, yeah, super interesting. So I dimly recall the story of. I mean, I knew that. I mean, I think there have been a few suicides off the Hollywood sign, but I knew that at least one actress had jumped from it at some point.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Back when it was called Hollywood Land.
Hollywood
before,
land.
Yeah, before that part of the sign was destroyed and never rebuilt. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
And I highly recommend both the music of Steely Dan and Dory C. Previn. Great stuff. Some folks have compared her to Randy Newman. I think it's really the other way around. You compare Randy Newman to
To her.
Dory Previn, and he would probably agree with that sentiment. So,
Right. Yeah, cool. Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
It's time for the Dream Idiot's curse word of the week.
All right. So, you want a curse word?
I have been waiting for weeks for a curse word, Brian, because I didn't hear a single curse word when I was in Canada.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Pitter patter. Yeah. So in our curse words this week on Dream Idiots. So it seems like in the past I have brought up the topic of collective nouns and how they're interesting and sometimes funny. This comes mostly from a guy named Mitch Clark, who is I'm not sure whether he's a writer or a DJ or what he is. WDUN Radio is in Georgia, but they have a website where some of this appeared. So collective nouns. You've heard of a pack of dogs, heard of cattle, school of fish. The actual collective noun for monkeys actually apparently is a barrel of monkeys, which actually is pretty funny. Some of them are not as obvious. A group of buzzards is a wake. I'm sure you know what a gathering of crows is.
A murder.
A murder of crows. A group of eels is called a seething, which is kind of weird and
That's
and gross.
That makes you itch.
Yeah, a couple others just because they're funny. Flamingos. A group of flamingos is called a flamboyance. Group of porcupines is called a prickle. A group of butterflies is called a kaleidoscope.
Oh, a sleuth of bears. I know that one. Yeah.
Oh, is that really one? Yeah, okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sleuth of bears. Yeah.
And so, for going on close to 100 years, there has been this bit about what do you call a group of baboons? The original correct answer to this question was a troop.
Okay.
And then at some point, I don't know, I couldn't find the source on this or the reference on this. At some point, someone during the Depression or maybe a little after FDR era started referring to a group of baboons as being a congress of baboons in order to make a little wry political humor out of it. And so that was added to the lexicon. So people actually now refer to a group of baboons as being a congress of baboons. And then years later, in a Monty Python bit, Michael Palin and John Cleese riffed about the fact that a group of baboons is called a flange, as completely as a joke. But then it also entered the lexicon because someone, who knows, someone cross-referenced it, and then flange was entered into at least one biology textbook. And so flange became quote unquote correct for a group of baboons. So I think it's time for us to come up with a good reference for what you would call, in honor of Kamala Harris, what you would call a group of Republicans. And so I posted on Facebook, yeah, please send in your best suggestion. Um, I my suggestions were either a Stasi or a constipation of, of Republicans. A friend of mine wrote in with a Klan, which is sort of spot on. And so write into us, Dream Idiots Podcast at Gmail. Come up with, it needs to be sort of a wry term. You can't call them a shit stain of Republicans, because that's too obvious. It needs to be a little bit esoteric, because they're stupid and they don't read. And so I think it's possible for us to actually come up with something that might actually gain some traction if we start using it a lot. So my challenge to you is, our listeners, you're going to come up with the best curse word. Come up with the best collective noun for
Ooh.
Republicans, and write in. Maybe we'll have a contest to see who wins. So is it it's a foreskin of Republicans? Something, I don't know. So send in
Wow.
your best suggestion.
I've only got one off the top of my head. A a Fisher of Republicans.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
not bad.
That's good. I like that, Brian. I like that a lot. Okay.
So we'll see what we can do to
Uh
add to the lexicon. But that's good. Nice and, what does that mean exactly? Yeah, I like that. Fissure. So,
oh.
uh, okay, for my story, a few weeks ago, I'm not sure how long ago actually, we dove into the world of art and the story about Stuart Little and the artwork that was hanging in the background that had been stolen by the Nazis. Sleeping Lady with Black Vase.
Right.
Um, so returning to that world again this week, art crime, as far as I can tell, seems to fall into three categories. First, it's sort of a wealthy person crazy covets a piece of art, and by a certain artist or a certain whatever style, and they covet it and they don't want to sell it. They want to either steal it themselves or pay to have someone steal it so they can hang it surreptitiously in their home and tell no one about it. Other times, artwork is stolen actually for its value, and they do intend to try to sell it, usually marked down considerably, because I mean, how do you sell a piece of artwork that everyone knows is now stolen? But then there's this weird third category where kind of the art is the victim, because people will destroy art, throw tomato soup on it, or chain themselves around it, or in order to protest climate change, or do whatever in furtherance of some cause that they are passionate about. So with that in mind, we're going to talk about Julian Assange. So quickly about this a-hole. So Assange is from Australia. He's an activist. He founded WikiLeaks in 2006. 2010, he's the guy who, via WikiLeaks, published a whole bunch of U.S. intelligence regarding airstrikes in Baghdad, and a whole bunch of military documentation from wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and also got his hands on a bunch of correspondence between U.S. diplomats. And November 2010, the Swedish government had a arrest warrant for Assange because he raped a young woman. Assange was convinced that that warrant was just a cover, because Sweden was going to help arrest him and extradite him to the U.S. related to those other charges. So he flees Sweden, goes to London. In November of 2010, Interpol puts out what's called a red notice on Assange. So he's now on their most wanted list. He's arrested in London, but then he's later released. but he's out on bail. June of 2012, Assange violates his bail, and that's when he goes to the Ecuadorian embassy in London and applies for political asylum. And so, applying for asylum basically means he showed up on their front door and said, "Would you mind awfully if I camped out in your lobby for a few years?" And they inexplicably they said yes. As far as I know, he has no connection to Ecuador whatsoever. Could have been the Venezuelan embassy just as easily. An office in the building is converted into a little studio apartment for him. So he has a little kitchen and a bed and a treadmill and a shower. He's only allowed to eat food that he can get through the staff kitchen there, or basically whatever Uber Eats will bring to him. So he's a little bit constrained. So this is June of 2012. The British government tries to come, they want to come inside and arrest him, but the reason you seek asylum is because they won't let the embassy won't let them do that because of those agreements. So then members of the London Metro Police just camp outside the embassy for a little over 3 years, June of 2012 to October 2015, saying that they intend to detain Assange the second he sticks his head outside, which of course he didn't. So 2015, all these officers are withdrawn because it's costing a boat. I mean, they spend in 3 years, they spend over 12 million pounds just funding these dudes. I'm not sure how many actual officers this was. It must have been several for that 3 year period. Assange stays in the embassy until April 11th, 2019. Ecuador revokes his asylum over a bunch of disputes. And I mean, they went so far as to grant him citizenship in 2017, and then basically they decided, well, fuck this dude. I mean, I can only assume that the ambassador there must have thought this was going to be good publicity and something to do for a few weeks, and then it just dragged on for years and years and years. Plus, there were numerous reports that Assange just made a complete ass of himself and was a pain to deal with. You can totally picture him walking around in a bathrobe using a putter as a cane, trying to chat up the staff. Ladies, I want to see your impression of the Ecuadorian embassy because I know you want me in you. Crap like that. The guy seems like a complete douchebag. At this point in time, the Metro Police were invited into the building because the ambassador has grown tired of this whole thing, and they arrest Assange for breaking his bail. Then, once he's arrested, the U.S. government then unseals the indictment charging Assange with 8 jillion counts of conspiracy, computer fraud, computer intrusion, money laundering. Well, I mean, all these things related to the U.S. military leaking of information. In 2019 and 2020, even more indictments are unsealed, charging him with violation of the Espionage Act of 1917, and that he conspires with hackers. And so Mr. Assange parked his skinny ass in HM Prison Belmarsh in London. And apparently this is an awful place. And he goes there April 2019, and he was sitting there while the U.S. tried to figure out how to extradite him to the U.S. And he's facing potentially 175 years in federal prison for all the counts are against him. So artwork. So one artist came up with an idea to raise awareness, basically. Russian artist Andrei Molotkin is loaned a collection of art. Molotkin works in, I believe it's pronounced Cotteret. It's a small town in southwest France. And his facility there is a gigantic building that is described as a huge decommissioned sanatorium that he bought several years ago as a studio and an art space. And it's just kind of a blank slate. Near the entrance to this place, he installed a gigantic Swedish bank safe. The thing weighs 32 tons, measures 13 by 9 feet, and is so heavy and cumbersome it had to be brought in pieces and assembled in the building. while being overseen by a bunch of security. Inside this safe lived a number of pieces of artwork by Serrano, Sierra, Lucas, Andy Warhol, Rembrandt, Picasso. Molotkin indicated that the collection was worth in excess of $40 million, but also in this safe was a pneumatic pump with connected to a couple of white barrels, one barrel holding powder in acid in powder form, and the other barrel has some nasty accelerator. I don't know what that would be, but when triggered, would cause a chemical reaction inside the safe so strong that it would pulverize. You turn all this artwork to dust within a couple hours. And Molotkin indicated that these collectors from all over the world donated this artwork, and there were others who were also willing to join the collection in order to help protect Assange and his life. The name of this art installation he called "Dead Man's Switch." So the dead man here is hypothetically is Assange. The threat was that Assange has to be released because he is in their mind is the hero basically, and should Assange die in prison or be extradited, the trigger would be fired off and all those art would be destroyed. Molotkin said, "quote In our time, to destroy art is much more taboo than destroying the life of people," unquote. But as I'm sure you heard, Assange magically reached a plea deal in just the last few weeks. I don't really know whether he's a hero or not. It seems incredibly weird to me to hitch your wagon to this guy. But he spent so much time cooped up in the embassy, 7 years, and then 5 years in a positively awful prison in the UK. The US just decided to punt on the matter, and they reached a plea agreement basically saying, "Time served, have a nice day." He was released from prison. He returned to Australia for the first time in well over a decade, and all of the art, although I couldn't confirm this separately, I believe all that art has since been returned to their owners. But it seems incredibly weird to me that you would offer up your Picasso to help secure this man's release. But whatever. But thanks to Maggie Kent, who writes for what's called the Priceless blog, writes on art crime, basically up in Canada, for giving me the idea for this story.
Art as hostage.
Yeah.
That's I'm now seeing like today's newspaper in front of a pile of art as proof of life. That is
Right.
nobody
Right.
move where the art gets it. I mean,
Hmm.
that so you did he ever face charges for the rape?
No, so he alleges that that was complete horseshit and never happened, and then also it was alleged at one point that inexplicably, and again, I'm working solely from memory here, and I don't have the sources. I believe it's the case that they alleged that even if it did happen, Sweden has a statute of limitations on sexual assault or rape, which I'm blown away. Why would anyone have a statute of limitations on a sex crime? It seems like, as with murder, they would never expire. But it's clear that he did something bad there, and the guy just has been cruising through life doing whatever the fuck he wants to do. I don't quite understand why he's viewed in this way. I'm not saying some of the information that he spilled didn't need to be spilled, because there certainly is a lot of nefarious crap going on behind the scenes that is certainly illegal. Governments doing shit off the rolls that we as citizens probably have a right to know about. But the guy just seems like a complete dirtbag.
I had not heard this story about holding. I mean, that's a hell of a leap of faith. I mean, that is.
Right. Anyway, he's out now. So what the hell is he gonna do next? I guarantee you, we hear about this guy again.
Well, I don't know. Maybe 5 years in His Majesty's prison
Taught him a lesson, right?
taught him a lesson.
Right. Eating swill and losing weight. You never know.
I guess they still serve gruel, His Majesty's prison. Bryan, I forgot to give my sources. Thank you for a wonderful story. Can I give my sources real
Yeah, sure.
quick? I forgot to give mine. All music. I'm out of practice, Bryan. It's been so long. All Music Guides Age Review by Stephen Thomas Erlewine, Mark Myers, 2020, April 7th. Article Peg, It Will Come Back to You, Steely Dan's Donald Fagen on the 1977 hit from the Wall Street Journal. Liz Cantrell's May 3rd, 2020 article from townandcountry.com, The Tragic True Story of Peg Entwhistle, the actress who jumped from the Hollywood sign. Genius.com for lyric help with Peg, Left Hand Lost, and Mary C. Brown on the Hollywood sign, and Wikipedia for basic info on Dory Previn. Sorry about that. So we've got a little art coming and going both ways here. Music, art is hostage.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating.
We have more. I have 2 or 3 more art crime stories coming up here reasonably soon, and Maggie with the Priceless blog website, which I will put in the show notes, is actually was going to come on as a guest, I think, here soon. So
that is awesome because
something to look forward to.
That's a really cool website. I checked it out a while back after your first story. Yeah, that's good stuff. That'd be great to have her on as a guest as well. So thank you, Bryan. That is an awesome tale.
Thanks for listening, folks.
Yeah.
And appreciate the break. Give us 5 stars on any platform that you're listening to us on. Give us a review too. Drop us a line. Give us a curse word, a collective noun that describes, in the meanest way possible, what you'd call a group of Republicans at dreamidiots.podcast@gmail. Check us out on dreamidiots.com, Facebook and Instagram. We are at Dream Idiots. And as always, we thank you for hanging out with us.
Yes, indeed. And be good to each other. Collectively, be good to each other. Thanks. Bye.
This is a Rough Tiger production.
Bong bong,
Mhm.
Bryan.
Bong bong?
Bong bong.
Bong bong. Good.